So what really keeps us happy and healthy as we go through our lives? It's probably one of the biggest questions we could ever ask, right? Well, let's really dig into this because what decades of science have to say about it, well, it just might surprise you.
First things first, let's talk about what we're all constantly told we should be aiming for. Society gives us a pretty clear, and let's be honest, a pretty loud message about what a successful life is supposed to look like.
So I want you to take a second and really think about this for yourself. If you were going to bet on what would bring you lasting happiness and health, way down the road, where would you put your effort? What are your biggest life goals, really?
Well, if you're like a lot of people, your answer probably has something to do with these two things. A recent survey asked young adults this exact question, and wow, the results were crystal clear. A huge 80% said a major life goal was to get rich, and half of them, 50%, said their goal was to become famous. So wealth and recognition, that's the picture of the good life we're all being sold.
We hear it all the time. Lean in, work harder, push for more. But what if that's not the real answer? What if 75 years of scientific research, of watching entire lives unfold from start to finish, points to something completely different?
And that's what we're going to dive into right now. An absolutely incredible investigation. It's actually one of the longest studies of adult life that's ever been done. It's set out to find the real evidence-based answer to what truly makes a good life.
Just try to wrap your head around that for a second. For 3/4 of a century, researchers tracked the lives of 724 men, year after year after year. They followed them from the time they were teenagers all the way into their 90s. Studies like this are almost unheard of. They're so incredibly rare and difficult to pull off.
And what made this study so powerful is that it followed two totally different groups of people. One group was made up of sophomores at Harvard, pretty privileged guys. The other group, boys from some of Boston's poorest, most troubled neighborhoods in the 1930s. We're talking about kids who started with almost nothing, many in homes without even hot running water. They grew up to be factory workers, lawyers, bricklayers, doctors, and one even became president of the United States. You've got the whole spectrum of life all in one study.
This timeline just shows the sheer dedication involved. It started way back in 1938 with interviews and medical exams. But over the decades, it got deeper. They added brain scans, they did blood work, they even videotaped the men talking with their wives and kids about their deepest concerns. And today, about 60 of those original men are still in the study, giving us an unbelievable picture of an entire human lifespan.
Okay, so after all that, after 75 years, thousands of pages of data, hundreds of lives, what was the single biggest lesson? What was the clearest message that came shining through all of that work?
It wasn't about getting rich. It wasn't about being famous. And it wasn't about working harder and harder. The clearest message from this 75-year study is this: good relationships keep us happier and healthier. Period. That's the secret.
So let's break that down, because it's one thing to hear it, but it's another thing to really understand how our connections protect us. It all boils down to 3 huge lessons.
Here they are, the 3 big takeaways from a lifetime of research. Number 1, social connections are absolutely vital for us. Number 2, it's the quality of those connections that really counts. And number 3, good relationships literally protect our minds.
So that first lesson is that, quite simply, loneliness kills. It turns out that people who are more connected to their family, to their friends, to their community, they are happier, they are physically healthier, and they live longer than people who are isolated. And the experience of loneliness, that feeling of being more isolated than you want to be, is literally toxic. It leads to your health declining earlier in life, and it's linked to shorter lives.
Now, the second big lesson is that you can be lonely in a crowd, and you can even be lonely in a marriage. It's not about how many friends you have, it's all about the quality of your close relationships. Living in the middle of conflict is just terrible for our health. But living inside warm, supportive relationships, that's protective. It acts like a buffer against all the slings and arrows of life.
And get this. This is the part that just blows my mind. The researchers looked at all the data they had on these guys when they were 50 years old. And the best predictor of who would be a healthy, happy 80-year-old wasn't their cholesterol level. It was how satisfied they were in their relationships. Think about that.
And that third big lesson is that this protection goes all the way up into our brains. Being in a securely attached relationship when you're in your 80s is a powerful defense. The people who felt like they could truly count on their partner when things got tough, their memories stayed sharper for longer. And interestingly, it didn't matter if they bickered all the time, as long as they had that deep down feeling that the other person had their back. That's what made the difference.
So here we have this profound wisdom that good relationships are good for us. And honestly, it's as old as the hills. So why is it so incredibly hard for us to practice this and so easy to just ignore it?
Well, it's because we're human. We want a quick fix, right? We want something we can get that will make our lives good and just keep them that way. But relationships, they're messy and they are complicated. Tending to your family and your friends isn't exactly sexy or glamorous. It's hard work and it's lifelong. It never, ever ends.
The people in this 75-year study who were the happiest and healthiest were the ones who leaned into relationships with family, with friends, and with their community. So the real question now is for you. What could that look like in your life right now?
And you know, the possibilities are endless, and they don't have to be some huge, dramatic gesture. It can be as simple as replacing some of your screen time with people time, or livening up a relationship by just doing something new together, a long walk, a date night. Or maybe it's reaching out to that family member you haven't spoken to in years, because those family feuds take a terrible, terrible toll.
I want to close with this beautiful quote from Mark Twain. Looking back over his life, he wrote this: "There isn't time, so brief is life, for bickerings, apologies, heartburnings, callings to account. There is only time for loving and but an instant, so to speak, for that."
And at the end of the day, that's what it all comes down to. After 75 years of research, the lesson couldn't be simpler or more profound. The good life isn't built on how much is in your bank account or how famous you are. The good life is built with good relationships.